welcome. So last time we worked on the inventory to make it so that even on the server, it works. We can swap item and we can remove item, and it works on the client too. So both client and servers. Alright, if I do this, yeah, it works. Do this, everything works. Great. Now, the way I am adding items so far has been through pressing buttons. So to add an item, I would press just fix this real quick. So to add an item, I would press 1, and that would cause a request item. Then we would add the potion, and then there's the 2 key here that would remove an item at a specific slot, and 3 would swap them around. Well, I think it's time to make it so that we can actually interact with the UI with our mouse and move stuff around, and also pick up items so that we can add item to the inventory without having to hard code it like this here. Let's work on moving items around in the inventory first, and then we'll add the ability to pick up stuff later. So I'm going to go to the inventory slot and go to the protected section here. Now I want to override a new function. Now I want to override a function. Let's do virtual void af reply native. What is it called? Native on mouse button. Oh, I know what happened. There's no void in it. F reply. Here we go. Native on mouse button down. That's what I'm looking for. And also, I'm going to override another one called virtual void native. What is it called? Native on drag. Yeah, this one, on drag detect, so that we can use that to detect if we are dragging a slot around or not. All right, so let's implement these two. Great. Okay, so this needs to return something. So instead of returning here, I'm going to do const f reply. Let's do super reply equals this. And then do return super reply. Alright, let's get that out of the way. Cool. Now what do we want to do in here? Let's first check. So if we click on a slot, so we are in a inventory slot widget. So if we have our inventory open and we click on a slot, so we click on this slot, for instance, I want to check if we do have an inventory manager, and also if we have a valid container ID. We need all of these things to be valid to proceed. If the slot index of this widget that we are clicking on, if this is also valid. Alright, so and if it's not, we'll just return the super reply. Okay, now if we let's detect a mouse button down. So in mouse event, get effective button. We can use that to check if the button is we'll do e keys left mouse button. So if we click on it, now if the affecting button is the left mouse button, I'm going to see if there is an item in this slot, because there's no point in doing anything if the slot is empty. So let's make sure that we do have an item like a potion or something in it. So let's do inventory entry. Let's do entry inventory UI manager, and from it I can get the inventory component, which I can then do find entry at slot, giving it this slot that I am in currently. Let's make sure that the entry is valid. So if we do have something, if we do not have anything in it, then we can just return. Now if we do have something, we'll do a widget blueprint library. We need to access that with it here, blueprint library, and we need to include the header. It did it for me. So here, don't forget that header. From this library, we can use a function called detect drag if pressed. Alright, so from there it needs a in mouse event, passing this as the widget being dragged, and the key is the left mouse button, and then the native reply. Alright, so if we have an item and we click on this slot, then we can try and detect a drag, if there is one or not. Now if there is indeed a drag happening, then this one is going to be called, so native on drag detect. So we'll do an if Let's make sure that everything is valid here also, and return if not. Do a const f inventory entry, same thing that we did there. So inventory manager, get the entry. If there is no entry, we'll just simply return. So just checking, are we dragging an item? If we're not dragging anything, then we just return. Okay, so now we need a drag and drop operation to proceed. We need to create a drag and drop operation. That's how you drag things around. So I'm gonna go to my UI here and add a new class. And let's go to all class and find a drag drop operation. This is what we want. We'll call it IT inventory drag operation. And I actually don't want it to be in the UIs folder. I want it to be in the subfolder called drag drop to keep it neatly organized. All right, cool. So now we have the drag and drop operation that we are going to create. And for now, I guess we'll leave this empty. We just need that to create. And we'll work on this later. I'm just going to close it for now. And here, let's make a UIT inventory drag and drop. I called it. So where's it here? I'm just going to call this drag operation to a new object IT inventory drag operation. There we go. Now we have a new drag operation. So we detect a drag, we create a new drag operation. Let's make sure that it is indeed valid. All right. Now that we have a drag operation, we need a widget to be dragging around. So we are not actually going to be dragging this widget around on the screen. We need to create a representation of this widget that we are going to use to attach to the mouse so that we can move that around. So we are not moving this widget. We're going to kind of make a copy of it that we will be just an image representation that we can move around. So let's do that. So in the drag and drop folder here, actually, I'm just going to make a new class. It can be a user widget. And let's call it inventory slot drag visual. Let's clean this up a little bit. Great. Now, what does my drag visual need? Let's do a public first and add we can just do a void init drag visual. So this will be used to initialize it. We'll make it take in a inventory component. I'm just going to forward declare it. Let's do in inventory component. We will need a const f gameplay tag. Let's do an in container ID and a const int 32 for an in slot indexed. These are the information that I'm gonna need to update, to initialize this widget. So, and then also let's include this here. Great. And this widget is going to be very similar to our slot widget anyway. So let me go to my slot widget here. My slot widget currently have a set to defaults. This is to set the visual and everything on it to default. So I'm just going to copy that. Let's make a protected section here. And what else can we take from the inventory slot widget? We will need, let's do all of these things. So I'm gonna need a background image. I'm gonna need an icon, a text for the quantity. Yeah, let's copy that, paste that here. I'm going to need these two so I can get the correct background. So let's paste that in. What else can we get? We'll probably use that too, this function that gets the background rarity from an item. Let me just, for here, I'll just create a private section actually. I'll just put that in here. There we go. And also we'll probably need a reference too, since we are using the inventory component, the container, and the indexed. Let me just copy all of this, paste that here. And let's change this to a inventory component instead. Same thing for here, inventory component. Great, now this is complaining. So let's include the item types. So item types is included, and the UE image and all that stuff. So if I go back to my inventory here, I can copy these forward declaration also, and let's just add them here. All right, so that should be it. All right, so let's create these functions. Just gonna select that and then do create definition. All right, so what do we want to happen in the drag visual? So let's set the inventory component to the inventory component, same for the container and the slot indexed. Next, let's make sure we have an entry, so an actual item. Need to get the item that we are representing. So let's do the entry. It included this here for me. So entry, inventory component, find entry at slot. And that slot is going to be past this and slot indexed. And don't forget your includes. Cool. Next, let's make sure that we do have an entry. So we do have an item that we are representing. And let's make sure that the container is valid and that the slot also is valid. So if it's not valid, we'll use set to default and return here. Next, I want to get the gameplay tag. Nope, gameplay tag. So item tag, entry, item tag. Let's make sure that the item tag is valid, because if it's not, we'll just set everything to the default and return. Now that we have the item tag, we can go through the item database to get the definition of the item, which contains the icon and all that stuff. So we'll do a const UI item database, inventory component, get item database, const UI we'll do item definition, call it just def, get the item database. If it's valid, then we'll set the item, we'll do get item definition by tag, giving it the item tag. Otherwise, yeah, we'll just do set it to null pointer. Alright, so now if we do have a valid definition for the item, actually if we do not have one, we'll just set to default again and then return. If we do have one, just like we did in the slot here, is that if I scroll up, so this is refresh. Yeah, we're doing basically the same thing. So I'm just going to copy all of that except this one. We don't need that. So paste that here. Alright, so this is complaining. It needs the image component, and this one also is complaining. It needs the text block. So these two are missing. Great. So now when we initialize this visual, we check if there's an item, then we get the item definition, and then from the item definition we can set the background, the icon, and the text on it. Great. And set default, we'll do the same thing that we were doing here. So if I go back to my inventory slot, I have a set to default here. I'm just going to copy it, copy these things and paste them in here. Nice. And actually the exact same thing for this function too. So let me go back here and copy this right here. Great. So now we have the visual. Nice. So I can close this now. Don't need it. And let's go back to the onDrag detect. So now that we have detected a drag and we have a drag operation, we can use that. So we'll do, actually, we also need access to the, so now we can use that to create a visual that we are going to be dragging around. So in order to create that visual, we need the class of the inventory slot drag visual that we just created. So I'm just gonna go here in the protect section. Yeah, that's fine. Let's put it right here. I'm gonna add it here. Let's do U property. I'll do edit default only. Blueprint read write blah blah blah. Not rarity. It's going to be, let's do drag. AT subclass of UIT inventory slot drag visual, and I'm just going to forward declare it. I'm gonna call this drag visual class. Yeah, class forward declare here. Great. So now we can use that here. So let's first make sure that we do have a drag visual class. Now, if we do have a drag visual class, we can do inventory drag visual we'll call it, and create it. So create widget UIT drag visual blah blah blah, and visual class this. Here we go. Wait, there we go. So now we create the widget, and let's make sure. So if we have a widget now, we can initialize it. The inventory manager, actually UI manager, and get the inventory component. That's what it needs. It needs the container ID, and it needs the slot indexed. And we can now take the drag operation and tell it to use this default drag visual in it. So we can take that and set that to the drag visual. So now the drag operation can use our widget for the drag visual. And here I'm just gonna do out operation equals our drag operation. Nice. Okay, that should be it. Let's compile this and create the actual widget. So the first thing I'm gonna do is to go to the UI and make a new folder here. Let's call this drag visual. And I'm actually going to take my inventory slot and copy it, go to my drag visual and paste it here. Now I'm going to rename it to, let's do drag visual and open it. I do not need this hover image, so I'm just gonna delete it, compile this. The class setting here, so class setting in the graph, and change the parent class here to my drag visual. So inventory slot drag visual. So it's asking me if I want to reparent it. Yes. All right. And now that we've done this, if I go to the class default, anything to change here? No, don't think so. Okay, that should be it. Yeah. All right. So that's good. Now that we are done with this, I don't think we need it anymore. We can close it and go back to the slot, my actual inventory slot, because I need to give it this drag visual class. So as you can see here, so under class default, UI, there's a drag here. So now we'll set that to the WBP drag visual widget that we just created. All right, so that's that. And I think we should be able to test this now. So let's test it. I got a crash. All right. I need to figure out what this is. So looking around, I couldn't actually find anything except that maybe it's because we reparented the class that could have caused the crash. So I'm hoping that I just need to recompile it and test it again, and it should normally work. Hopefully. Let's see. Alright, so I've recompiled. Let's make sure that this is still set here. Yes. And let's see if I press play again if it crashes. No, it doesn't. Okay, so that was indeed what was happening. Cool. So now if I open the inventory and add an item to it and click on it, hey, it works. Look at that. Now I can't drop it anywhere, of course, but it works. So we have the drag visual. You can see when I click on it, I can drag it around. Now let's check if it works on the server too. It should, just to be sure. Yep, it works. Indeed. Nice. So that's great. We got that working. Okay, let's keep working on it now. So now that we're able to drag the widget around, we need to be able to drop it on another slot. And if it's an empty slot, it should just move it there. If it's already taken by something, if we can merge them, we just merge them. If we can't merge them, then we should swap the places of the slots, of the item in the slots. Alright, so let's do that. So I'm actually going to go to the inventory slot widget again, to the header file, and we need another function here. We can override. There's a function on it called native onDrop. Here, native onDrop. There we go. So this one will be called when we are dragging something and we release the mouse button. So that will be a drop. All right. So native onDrop. What do we want to do in native onDrop? First thing first, I'm just gonna remove this here. Let's do a return true. There we go. Okay, so let's do some simple check. So as always, if none of this is valid, we'll just return false. Otherwise, we do need the drag operation. So we are indeed giving the drag operation here in the out operation, so we can actually access it via this thing, because you'll see here we have an in operation. So let's do the inventory drag operation. Drag operation will cast it using the in operation. Now, if this is not valid, we'll just return. If it is valid, now we need a few more things. So to drop an item, I'm going to need access to the inventory component and all that jazz. So let's go back to the drag operation. in the drag operation here. So I'm just going to make a public section. So let's do public, and let's make a U property, make it transient, and create a, so let's do a T object point of type UT inventory component. Let's forward declare us, and inventory component, let's set that to null pointer by default. Okay, another U property, transient, we'll do F gameplay tag, container ID. It's complaining, so let's do the include here. Another U property for an int slot indexed equals index none by default. Okay, so now the drag operation have these on it. Let me close this, go back to the widget. So now here where we are creating the drag operation, so here we're creating the drag operation. I want to get the drag operation and set its inventory component on it. So inventory, get inventory component, there we go. So now this is set on it. When we start dragging, which now we can access it from here. Okay, so now we'll check if the drag operation has a inventory component that is valid. Yes. Also, I want to make sure that the drag operation has a, let's make sure that it does not have a different inventory component as the widget that we are operating on. That shouldn't be the case, but just in case, might as well have it. Let's make sure the drag operation has a valid container ID also, and let's make sure that the, what else can we check? What do we need to check? Let's check if the drag operation, the container ID is equal to the container ID of where we are, and that the drag operation slot, not less but equal. Basically, we're just checking, are we dragging and dropping this in the same container? So let's say for instance the player inventory, and if we are we dropping it on the same slot? So there's no point in dragging something from slot 0 and dropping it on slot 0 again. So if that's the case, there's nothing to do, we just return. And let's also make sure that we have drag operation, almost forgot about this one, the slot indexed, and here we go. What else? Did I forget anything else that we need to check? I don't think so, should be fine. Yeah. Alright, current inventory component. So let's do an inventory component, and let's do equal inventory component, blah blah blah. There we go. If it's not valid, we return. And now we've done all the checks. Okay, yeah, I think that's it. No more checks, right? Yeah. We can finally do so we are trying to move something. And how do we move something? Well, we do a request. So we'll do an fmove item request. So far, I think it's the first time we're actually using these things. We create a request that from container ID equals drag. Let's do drag operation container ID. Do request that from slot is going to be the drag operation slot indexed request dot to container is drag operation. No, wait, not drag operation. So drag operation was where it was coming from. Now 2 is going to be this container. We are dropping it in here, and this one is going to be this slot. All right, inventory component. Let's do request move item, passing in the request that we just created. Yep, I think that's it. So on drop, we do a whole bunch of checks, and so that we can finally do a request to move the item from this container to this container, and from this slot to this slot. I think that's it. Let's compile and see. All right, now I'm in. Let's check. I'm on the client. I'm just gonna run it. All right, add some items. And if I drag and drop this here, nothing happens. What if I drop it here? Nothing seems to happen. All right, let's figure out why. Yeah, I think I see why. Here, we are missing this. So we should say if it's not valid, then we return. We were saying if it was valid, then we were returning, which doesn't make any sense. So hopefully that's it. So let's run this again. Okay, so let's try this again. So I'm gonna add a couple of items. Now if I drag and drop this here, hey, there we go, now it works, nice. What if I drop this here? Yeah, it swaps, look, nice. Now it swaps them around. Let's add some item here. I'm going to move that here. Actually, let's take this, remove some from it, and see if they merge together. So if I drop this on top of this, we should go to 9. And indeed, we do go to 9. Now, if I drop this on top of that one, this should go to 10, and this should come to 9. Or actually, let me just do this and reduce it. So this makes more sense. So now, if I do this, yep, this goes to 10, and there's 7 left here. Remove a few from it. If I do this, you have 5 and 10. Yep. So we are able to merge things together. So that's great. We can swap, merge, or move them into any slot in the inventory. No issues. Now, one thing that I'm gonna do, I think the spacing between the slots is a bit too tight. So I'm just gonna go to my inventory slot here. And let's do the slot background image. Yeah, that should be fine. So I'm just gonna take this background image here and add one to it as padding. Let's see what that looks like now. Yeah, that's a bit better actually. Yeah, tiny bit more space. So that's fine. Great. So everything is working. Nice. And let's just check on the server too. While we are here, I do this. Yep, everything is working. Nice. So what should we do next? Actually, while we are here, something simple. Let's go to the inventory slot widget here. And in here, I'm going to override 2 functions. So let's do a virtual void native on mouse enter. And also virtual void, native on mouse leave. So when the mouse enters the actual slot and when we leave it. All right, so let's generate these. All I want to do here is just check my hover image. If I do have it, hover image, let's do hover image, set visibility to self hit test invisible. And here, check the hover image and do hover image. Instead, we're going to set it to hidden. Let's compile and check this. Okay, so let's press play, open the inventory, and yep, this is working. So as you can see, when I hover over the slot, the hover image appears properly and it goes away when I leave it. Everything is working. Nice. Yep, nice. Looking nice. All right, and so what should we do next? We should probably work on picking up an item, right? Because so far I'm adding item by hard coding it. I'm pressing 1 and removing item by pressing 2 and stuff. So we should probably change that. So next we'll work on picking up items. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed. Link to my Patreon and stuff if you want to support me is in the description. It has the next tutorial uploaded there and the project file also. Other than that, hope you've enjoyed. See you in the next one.